Hi there, it's Dr. Mary Barbera here for another YouTube Live, and I am coming to you tonight to talk about 3 steps you can take to reduce tantrums and other problem behaviors in a child with autism or signs of autism. And quite frankly, these 3 same techniques will work even if your child is not delayed at all. It works for typically developing kids as well. But I am here specifically to talk about autism and kids showing signs of autism. And I'll also talk about the chapter in my book called Stop the Tantrums and Start the Learning. The book, all the details, pre-order bonuses can be found at turnautismaround.com. So I am here for my 10th day live, the 10th day in a row that I'm doing lives. I'm going to pull on my friends from another network and we will get going. So if you're here and if you can hear me, and if you have any questions about tantrums or other problem behaviors, let me know in the comments. And we will get on our way. Okay, I think we're live. I am Dr. Mary Barbera, and I am here for a live presentation. I'll take some autism questions before and after I get started with the main topic for today. So the main topic for today is, this is all about autism and tantrums and 3 steps you can take starting today to reduce tantrums and other problem behavior. So we're going to get to that content very soon. If you are here, if you can leave me a comment, that would help me. And if you have a question, especially a question regarding problem behaviors, let me hear it. Okay, so we have Nancy from Connecticut. Awesome. And John Smith wants to know if the book is available in any bookstore. Actually, the book comes out in 20 days on March 30th. It's available for pre-order now. And if you pre-order, you can get all the pre-order bonuses, including reading the first 3 chapters. You'll get to join a launch team if you're interested. And you'll be a part of our movement to help empower and teach parents how to detect and treat the early signs of autism. Okay, and we have Bralo from the Dominican Republic. Okay, excellent. Okay, Sophia, Afreen, Hushba from Texas. Excellent. Okay, so tonight is all about tantrums and other problem behavior, and I'm going to give you 3 steps. So if after the call you haven't pre-ordered my book, that would be an excellent time to do so. All right, so for those of you that don't know me, I am a mom to 2 adult sons, one with moderate to severe autism and one who is in medical school. I'm also a registered nurse, a board-certified behavior analyst. I have a PhD. I've written 2 best-selling books now. My first book, The Verbal Behavior Approach, was published in 2007. It's available in over a dozen languages. And then my brand new book, Turn Autism Around, is already a bestseller in 5 different categories. So I have been reducing tantrums and other problem behaviors for 2 decades now. And I'm just going to give you the real basics. There is a whole chapter in my book. I've done many video blogs. If you want to search for them, you can search Mary Autism plus whatever topic you're struggling with. So if that's tantrums, talking, sleep, eating, potty training. I should have a video blog and or a podcast. I have a podcast by the same name as my book, Turn Autism Around. You can search for that wherever you listen to podcasts. So to answer the person's question too, is the book in bookstores? It will be. And so if you do have a bookstore locally, make sure you stop in and ask them if they're going to be carrying Turn Autism Around and plan to purchase it there. That would be excellent. Okay, so when we're talking about problem behaviors, or tantrums. A lot of people say tantrums when they're talking about little kids. Or some people might say, well, my child really doesn't have tantrums or a lot of problem behaviors, or he's 2 and he's not throwing fits that much more than my other son, who was when he was 2. And Lucas was like that, my older son. He was not a real tantrumy kind of kid. He was a quiet kid. He liked to watch a lot of TV. He had some pop-out words, but he was not throwing major fits. But many of my clients also fit that same profile, but we have to think, when we think about problem behaviors, we have to think about big problems like throwing yourself on the ground in a parking lot. We have to think about big problems like banging your head on hard surfaces, aggression. Those are, property destruction, unsafe behavior, darting into streets, leaving the house. And when people say tantrums and big problem behaviors, those are usually the ones they're thinking of. But we also have to, in addition, look at problem behaviors that are just getting in the way of learning. Like problem behaviors. I had a client who's in the book. His name is Jack. And he liked to take empty bottles and straws and put them in and pour them out and put them in. And he would do that for hours if you let him. And then he might have a little tantrum if you take the bottles away. So you might think, well, that's not hurting anything. But Jack was really delayed with his language. And we needed to get him to focus not just on putting things in and out. We needed to have him focus. He also had problem behaviors related to picky eating. And he didn't even like the sight of food. So he would eat finger foods, string beans, meats, pasta. But if you presented anything on a utensil or just put a blob of applesauce down in a bowl in front of him, he would scream. So what that shaped up in his parents is they just stopped presenting utensils, stopped presenting mushy food. But feeding and talking are very intertwined and very much related. So the first step to reducing problem behaviors is to assess the problem behaviors, assess the child, assess where the milestones should be. Like if the child's 18 months, should they be doing X, Y, and Z? Should they be eating with utensils? Should they be drinking out of an open cup? Should they be pointing? Should they be talking in one-word phrases or two-word utterances? Should they be soothing themselves if they get upset? Should they be listening to a book? Should they be washing their hands or brushing their teeth with assistance? So all kinds of skills. So in my other lives, this is my 10th day straight going live. I'm going to go live every day in March. And so I have done lives on assessment, which is a 1-page assessment, which is in my book, Turn Autism Around. We talked one night about planning, and we talked one night about, is it autism, ADHD, or speech delay? And I referred you to the CDC or Act Early website, which you can go on and you can find out what an 18-month-old should be doing, or a 30-month-old, or a 48-month-old. But part of assessing problem behaviors is to look at not just throwing yourself to the ground in the middle of the Walmart parking lot, but also those problem behaviors that are getting in the way of the child learning language and learning other skills. So that is step 1, is assessing the problem behaviors, kind of defining the problem behaviors, like what kind of problem behaviors. Now, if Jack was putting straws in bottles and reacting to applesauce in sight, but he wasn't, but if he had more major problem behaviors like aggression or hitting his head and those sorts of things, we would need to look at both the major and the minor and tackle the problems that are going to be most unsafe. We also have to look at not just head hitting or aggression, but how frequently is it happening? Is this 10 times a day, 10 times a week, a month? Is this hitting your head? What's the magnitude? How hard is he hitting? Is he hitting on hard things? Is he just taking his hand and going like that as a 2-year-old? That's not really going to hurt anything. But some kids punch their head or bang their head on cement. That's going to cause a concussion. So, and if your child has any of those major problem behaviors, self-injurious behavior, aggression, property destruction, throwing themselves on the ground, eye gouging, skin picking, bleeding, those are serious behaviors that I'm not going to be able to give you tips and tricks to fix that. You're going to want to go to your pediatrician. You're going to want to ask for a behavior analyst to help you take a look at the individual circumstances. But just in general, I'm just giving you general info here. And that's, something I have to be careful about because things can get worse. And we just need to be eyes wide open. Okay, so step 1 is assessing problem behaviors and assessing in all areas, because we don't want to just look at, like if somebody says, I have a 2-year-old who's banging their head on hard surfaces 10 times a day. I also want to know, is he speaking? Is he walking? Is he, what else is he doing? What's his food like? Is he addicted to a bottle or a pacifier? What other kinds of problem behaviors does he have? Does he scream? Does he cry? Why is he banging his head? Because he wants something? He wants to get out of something? Is there a medical problem? Does he have seizures? I mean, there's just a ton of things, but this is just a brief little lesson. So just assessing what is the problem behavior that the child is exhibiting. Okay, so that is step 1. Step 2 is we want to spend 95% of our time preventing problem behavior, not reacting to it. So if you have a question like, what should I do? My child throws himself on the ground. Well, we need to start with assessment. You need to make a plan. You need to follow all the steps. This is not going to be a quick reactive strategy. We want to spend 95% of our time preventing problem behavior, which takes a lot of work, takes knowledge, and it takes some patience and some planning. It's all a process. And I have 2 online courses. I wrote my book because I need to get this information into the hands of the millions of people who need it. And it's not impossible, for sure. But step number 2 is to spend our time preventing problem behavior, keeping your child engaged in fun tasks and learning how to increase talking, increase eating, expanding the diet, improving sleep, teaching a child to potty train. All of these skills are all a part of the good behaviors we want to increase, and that in itself should decrease the tantrums and the other problem behavior. Okay, so step number 1 is assessment. Step number 2 is spend our time on preventative strategies, which I talk about a lot in my courses and my book, both my books. And step number 3, I'll give you one reactive strategy. If you're using timeout, it's probably not a good idea. It's probably, I've never seen anybody use timeout right out of the gate and it be really appropriate. Unless you have, even with a board certified behavior analyst on the case, like I've just never seen it really be working well. But a very small, more child-friendly approach to behavior reduction is if you have a lot of, say, crying and as the child's reaching for the cup, let's just say there's juice in here and he's like, ah, you can't really give him the juice while he's crying because that's going to reinforce crying. So I have a very kind of child-friendly approach is called the shush, label, and give. So if you can calm the child down, shh, come on, quiet down, shh, and then you say juice and you give it. So shush, label, and give. That is when a child is crying and wants access to something. And that is really the one reactive strategy that you can use even for a baby who's crying. Because we want to turn the crying off before we label and give things. Otherwise, you risk really reinforcing the behavior. So those are the 3 steps. I'll look at the questions here if we have anything related to problem behavior that I can answer quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. So that's the basics. I could spend 40 hours teaching you about reducing problem behaviors, and we don't have that kind of time right here. But I assure you, it's worth the effort to reduce any kind of problem behaviors. And if you have an older child who's conversational and whining and crying and those sorts of problem behaviors, it's the same approach. We just need to assess what's going on. We need to assess where they're at, why they're whining or crying. Oh, well, they whine and cry. When do they whine and cry? Well, when they're in math class. And what are they expected to do in math class? Double-digit addition. Well, he can't label numbers, or he can't do single-digit addition. And so we really have to piece together, there's probably prerequisite skills that are not in place. And that comes with step number 2 of preventative strategies, which include like basically meeting the child where he or she is at so that the problem behaviors don't occur. So a child who's having fun and getting lots of reinforcement is probably not going to be having problem behaviors. So we want to increase those behaviors like talking and other behaviors, and the problem behaviors should really fall away. Okay. So Rebecca said, my son plays so aggressively with his cars. He is 2, almost 3. Yeah, so Rebecca, I'm not sure if you pre-ordered the book, but, there's a whole lot more. If he's playing aggressively with his cars, there's a whole assessment. There's a whole making a plan, engaging your child, teaching him how to play gently with his cars. And that's all behaviors you can change. Okay. So Jennifer said, I'm curious what your opinion is on ABA, as would it be aversive? Some people are against it versus strength-based learning. So the Turn Autism Around approach falls under the umbrella of the science of applied behavior analysis. The science is strong, solid, decades of research backing it up. It's a science of changing behavior. So when you say ABA versus strength-based learning, the ABA, verbal behavior approach, which is my first book, which is how to really look at language and improve language and learning skills. And the Turn Autism Around approach is a strength-based learning method. ABA is all learning theory. It's how to increase behaviors, how to increase learning, how to increase language. I just interviewed a mom today for my Turn Autism Around podcast, and she has 4 adult children, all who were diagnosed with autism when they were younger. And they're all fully functioning adults. And I asked her this question. I said, what do you say to people who say ABA is cruel and ABA? And she said, she's a behavior analyst now, and she said, what I know about behavior and the journey of my 4 children, who are now all gifted, talented adults, leaders in their fields, she said, I now consider not doing ABA to be cruel. So the Turn Autism Around approach is child-friendly. It's not punishing. We do not want crying. Our one-page plan, which comes after the one-page assessment, is all the strengths and the needs. And then we make a plan. So in essence, what you're describing, the strength-based learning, is the Turn Autism Around approach. So, okay. I have trouble with my child trying new foods. She will throw a tantrum, will only eat 2 things she likes. Any advice? That's from Angelique. Yes, after this, you can search for Mary Autism Feeding. I have a really good video blog on how to kind of write down on paper the easy foods, your foods your child will eat, medium foods, and difficult foods. And that is all in a chapter of my book, which will really help too. And we will be doing a Facebook Live on one of these days on eating. Lily Daisy is here for the 10th day in a row. She's from Australia. She's in our online community as well. So she gets the prize for 10 days straight. What is the best approach towards restricted, repetitive behaviors my son has? Extreme meltdowns. It has to be stopped for a while, especially when he's in therapy session. It's a complicated situation. So you're asking for like how to stop a behavior once it starts. And my thought was you need to go back to the drawing board, talk about age, ability level, assessment in all areas. Where should his milestones be? What are his strengths? What are his needs? What kind of stimming he does, and how to make learning fun, how to incorporate his strengths, his motivations within therapy session. Okay. Yeah, so this live is for problem behavior. Somebody, Liz Lee, said, I think it's for problem behavior. Yeah, I want to really keep it kind of focused on problem behavior today or tonight for me. But if you have other questions that are related, that's fine. And we can answer a couple more. Okay, so Anish says, my daughter is playing right now repetitively in my dishwater now. She has a tantrum when I try to stop her. She will be going on and on if I let her. So if a child is doing something for a while and then you try to say, okay, all done this, time to do this. And you're in essence, if playing in the dishwater is a 10 out of a scale from 1 to 10, it's a 10, it's highly reinforcing. And you try to take your daughter to get a bath or to go to the doctor or to clean up her toys, it's abrupt. And kids with autism do not do well with transitions. So what I would recommend is I have a really good blog on transitioning and 5 steps to transitioning. It's also included in my book. There's a part about 5 steps to ease transitions. And so you really need to think about what she's going from a high preferred to a low preferred. And so if playing with water is a 10, but eating popcorn is a 9, and taking a bath is a 2, we need to work her way down. So there's also things like timers, okay, all done, but she knows that it's all done, the water, fun thing, but now the next thing is also a high preferred, like playing on her iPad or eating popcorn or something like that. So you really need to keep things steadily high so that there's reinforcement. Even if bath time is currently at a 2, we need to think of ways to get bath time more reinforcing. New bathtub toys, bathtub crayons, making the water warmer, whatever it takes, foam soap. And so we're constantly working on preventing that tantrum, and transitioning is a big problem for many kids. Okay, so I am going to hop off. I appreciate these questions. Lula is here. She or he was here several nights 2. So I think I'm going to hop off, but I really do want to just summarize really quickly that the 3 action steps you can take to reduce tantrums and other problem behaviors is to assess. Think of tantrums and problem behaviors like a lot of things, like playing with straws and bottles, not wanting certain foods, throwing tantrums about certain things, not transitioning well. Assess not just the types of problem behaviors, but how frequently they occur, how the magnitude, how serious they are. Safety is always first. That's the ones you want to tackle first. I have a whole chapter on assessment, a whole chapter on a plan, and a whole chapter on stopping the tantrums and start the learning. So step 1 is assessment. Step 2 is spending 95% of our time preventing problem behavior, looking at ways to transition, looking at the feeding chapter. How can we make this more appealing? Everything. And step number 3 is you can try to use the shush, label, and give procedure, which I explain more in chapter 6 of my book. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, it is available now for pre-order. You can join our launch team. I am going to be closing the launch team probably next week in preparation for the book coming out. So grab the book, get on our launch team, start reading the book now, and start changing the trajectory of your children's lives. It's also for professionals. So if you're a professional here, I want to encourage you to join as well. You to pre-order. We have over 550 like-minded parents, professionals, grandparents in our launch team group, and I'll be going live there. I'm going to start to give some prizes away, and yeah, we're just rocking and rolling here. I've been on TV. I was on WGN TV. You can search WGN on YouTube and Mary Barbera, and you will find a 6-minute clip of my TV interview. I've also been interviewed by radio shows and podcasts. So I'm trying to get the word out. You can help me sending everybody you know to turnautismaround.com. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 11. Bye.